The global elite derive their power from the private banking system that controls the issuance of currency and credit, liquidity. We've always told you that's your enemy. And we told you they were planning an economic implosion. They've done it hundreds of times in third world nations. That's been public. Argentina, Brazil, Guatemala, Nigeria. They did it back in the mid-90s in Japan. And we know what we're talking about here. A depression will be devastating, but the banks need to do that. They need to have a long, controlled economic collapse. They want to have an incremental one, not an overnight one, so they can further expand their control of the world economy. And they want it out of the crisis they've created, blame it on the public, and claim that subprime mortgages did it. That's one small part. They packaged those bad loans and sold them repeatedly. So the people are not to blame. In that respect, the people are to blame for being slovenly, being ignorant, not being involved in their government, letting the private banks take over. You study U.S. history in its first 100 years, everything was about the private banks. Everything was about stopping them taking over. People understood that. Thomas Jefferson. Of course, you have the famous case of Burr, in a shootout duel, killing Alexander Hamilton, who wanted to have private banks take over and have a king, wanted George Washington to be a king. We have Andrew Jackson fighting the British banks taking over. And on his deathbed, they said, "What are you most proud of?" And he said, "I killed the bank," on his deathbed at the Hermitage there in Tennessee. So politically, if we can expose that these guys need to go to jail, as Congressman Ron Paul said a few weeks ago on this radio show. He said, yeah, they're guilty, and he listed the crimes. Bernanke, Paulson, Alan Greenspan, they have engineered this. And we need to start having discussions and talks about that. And talks about real ways to help Main Street and rebuild our industry. Instead of, let's have a bailout of the same New World Order foreign banks that engineered this. You see, they're creating a world depression, and then they're stocking up with our currency and our money to be able to buy everything up that they don't have while they do that. Let's go to Justin in L.A., and then many, many others that are patiently holding. Justin, you're on the air worldwide.
Oh, great. Thank you, Alex. Albert Louise Possums. I'm really excited to be on your show, and I've written down what I wanted to say on air because I'm afraid I'd be too nervous and just get distracted.
Go ahead and shoot.
Okay, I want to tell you a story. I'm hopping mad right now with all the things that I thought I'd call about, like I'd been researching depleted uranium, chemtrails, which I have almost 2,000 photographs of. I'm talking about my martial law experience in Los Angeles. Last month, September 14th at 11 p.m., I was walking down to the end of my street to go to 7-Eleven to buy a gallon of water because the tap water here is...
You're engaging in Al-Qaeda activity. All right. You're outside.
Yes,
you're not supposed to be slaves.
I only get one house down from my apartment complex, and this Lawndale Sheriff's Deputy, Tony Torres, shines a spotlight on me from about 15 feet away. I turn and look. He screams at me to come over there and put my hands on the hood of the car. I hesitate. I ask why, because I know he has no probable cause. And after a moment of him screaming at me to come over there and spread my legs, I go over to the car. He runs up behind me, pulls my hands behind my back, and starts taking everything out of my pockets and patting me down without consent or probable cause.
Okay, now, long story short, why?
Well, he told me that I said, this isn't Nazi Germany or Communist Russia. He says, I have to do this. This is a high crime area. I have to do this. And
yeah, that happens. I'll leave my office at like midnight a lot, and just anybody walking to the convenience store that's next door, the cops just wait in the dark and turn their lights on, then frisk them and shake them down, which sounds good, but they're doing nothing about stopping all the real crime, the open borders, the rest of it.
That's what I told this guy, because I talked to him for about a half an hour after he did this, and he told me it's California law that I must have photo ID on me.
Yeah, that failure to ID thing's been thrown out a million times, but they still force it. Failure to ID has been thrown out. There's a Supreme Court case from Austin, Texas. There's quite a few on it, but one from Austin, Texas in the mid-'80s, 1984. And it's totally unlawful. It's totally criminal. But they've all been trained. They're doing this, treating us all like prisoners. The kids are prisoners in school for our safety. No, it's for the bankers' takeover power. I appreciate your call, sir. Let's go ahead now and talk to Jay in Mass. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, make it diddles, Alex.
Hey, buddy. What's up?
Nothing much. I was wondering about what you think about 10/13 tomorrow. Apparently, it's supposed to be some anniversary for the death of the Templars or something like that. So I think it'd be a good idea to watch out and see what goes on tomorrow.
Well, a lot of people put a lot of dates on things, and we don't generally do that. You know, we just cover the facts that we're able to. But Friday the 13th is known as bad luck. I mentioned that, by the way, last week, strangely enough, because that's when the Pope in France and Spain rounded up the Knights Templars and took their money and killed a bunch of them, and the rest of them fled to Scotland. Let's go ahead and talk to Bill in Pennsylvania. Bill, you're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
I was listening to your show last week you were talking about Zeitgeist Addendum, right?
Yeah, it's a film online, and I was talking about claims that we're not going to have any classes in this wonderful utopia ran by machines. And I said, funny, the New World Order says they're going to have a utopia run by machines, but the majority of us will be exterminated.
Okay, anyway, I just wanted to mention that I went to they have the Zeitgeist Movement website now. They just started it, launched it.
The movement?
It's called the Zeitgeist Movement.com. Anyway, I went there and I left an email and I said that you were talking about it, and I said I'm a Zeitgeist fan and I think you should do this interview with Alex Jones. So I hope they do, and I think it's really strange when you're talking to people about things that you've done research on. They look at you like you have an eye in the middle of your forehead, and but there's a lot of different kind of movements going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And each of them separately don't draw enough people, I think. But all these separate movements, if put together, there's a lot more people, you know what I mean?
No, I know. The problem with that is you can't combine all the different alternative media groups and different movements of different ideas in together and have them agree, because other groups aren't going to agree with each other. That's not how this is going to work. We need a grassroots movement of people waking up, getting involved, and having a public debate. And I wasn't attacking Zeitgeist on my radio show when I played a few clips of it. I was telling the story of Zeitgeist. I've gotten a lot of attacks and a lot of hate because people don't agree with the movie Zeitgeist, quite a few people. And then the guy used a bunch of clips from my films in it. And so then I got the blame as if I was premeditatedly involved in all that when I wasn't. Now, later he called up and got authorization to use some clips because you can't really say no when they're already doing it. The point is that they covered the 9/11's an inside job. There's a New World Order. There's a private banking system running things. The monetary system's a fraud. I overall think it's a good film. I agree with about 95% of it. But then they put out an addendum that is, I know history. I know that the New World Order puts out this view that there'll be no more classes, no more money, no more system. And then they say we're going to eradicate classes. That takes force. There's going to be people that are going to want to, quote, claim they're in a class. There's going to be people that want to own their own private property. You start talking about getting rid of all that, that's a very serious issue. And I just did the parallels between the fact that H.G. Wells and other futurists 80, 90, 100 years ago, and Karl Marx and others talked about the age of the machines and not having to work because the machines will produce for everybody and make everything wonderful in a land of milk and honey. And I said where they've tried all that, that hasn't happened. Now, certainly because of technology, humanity really could go to another level. The point is that to just say that it's not dangerous and to not mention the dangers of that type of centralization, it's a centralization, and then they're claiming that it's a decentralization. So because this has made so much interest, I'm going to try to put a mini documentary together, 10-minute blurblet or something, to break down the facts here. But people need to just see Terror Storm, Endgame. They need to see films like Truth Rising, which specifically cover an issue and prove an issue. The criminal elements of the government staged the 9/11 attacks. Here's the proof. Now, don't trust them anymore because they may stage more terror attacks. Or here are these private banks. They're going to orchestrate an implosion. We're there before it happens telling you what's going to go on, not after the fact. But it's not some arch crime for me to have my free speech and say that when you talk about eradicating money and classes, that every time that's done, you get a Mao Zedong or a Stalin. I got time to take one more call here? I don't. Yeah, we better go ahead and go to break. And then we will come back with our guest, Phil Berg. He's a prominent lawyer. He's also the head of a state agency previously to that. Talking about Barack Obama. Is he really a congressman? I mean, Barack Obama, can he really run for president? I was thinking about Congressman Ron Paul in a clip I'm going to be playing later. The bottom line is, with anything that says it's too simple, here's a magic bullet, there's going to be a utopia, we're going to run it all, no more classes, look out, the blood's going to flow in the streets. And that's happened historically, so I pointed it out. All right, here comes the news, and we'll be right back after that. Stay with me.